Welcome to a special Saturday edition of Accademia Giallo. Yes, we usually do the Sunday school bit, but now we're doing things a little differently this month. Speaking of different, we're going to be talking about Five Dolls for an August Moon, a film by Mario Bava, who we've talked about on this show before. But this is a very different Bava film from what I've seen. Uh, Good, bad, I don't know about ugly. I think
It's not much ugly.
AC, this is the second movie we've talked about this week in which I feel like the whole thing was kind of saved by the last 20 minutes.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, a character, and this happens rarely, this kind of a gift, where a character in the movie will say exactly what I've been thinking for the preceding like 50 minutes. One of the characters says, "Everyone seems to be waiting for something that's not happening." Um,
And once again, I'm like, as we talked about The Wicker Man earlier this year or earlier this week, and I'm like, Ian, come on, man. No, I think this movie gets things off to a pretty good start early on, and then it just gets. I think it gets funnier and sillier and
yes.
more enjoyable as it goes along. But no, I wouldn't say I had to wait until the last 20 minutes to get into it.
And here's the thing, much like The Wicker Man, but I think even more so in The Wicker Man, I feel like I could go back and watch this movie again, like this afternoon, and be on the same wavelength. Have that because again, knowing where it's going
Sure.
and knowing where it goes thematically. But if you want to set this up for us, tell us what is
Oh boy.
$5 for an August Moon.
Oh man. I mean, from that title alone. So we have a group of couples. I feel like it's four couples, and then there's an extra female along for the ride.
Yeah, it'd
Does that
be
sound right?
Isabel, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we've got a group of nine people who head off to an island for a kind of weekend getaway, and turns out, one of them is the professor who has come up with. It's not a 3 hour tour, by the way, but he has come up
Feels
with.
like it. Sorry, what?
It
No.
felt like 3 hours. But he has come up with a new formula, and these three other businessmen are very interested in purchasing it from him, purchasing the rights of it from him. And he is not all that keen to sell. He wants to just, it be for the benefit of mankind. And well, people start getting bumped off all around, and it's up to us to figure out who's doing the killing and why.
Help me out, Aaron. What is an experimental resin or whatever this formula
Well, I
is?
mean, experimental resin is like, the stuff that sticks things together. So presumably it adheres in a way that other things don't adhere, or it's super glue before there was super glue. I don't know if you might be too young, but I remember the guy with the hard hat hanging
I remember that.
stuck onto the girder and like hanging from it, and I'm kind of like, this was crazy glue before crazy glue. That's what the experimental resin was.
It would have been nice to have some bit of detail there because when I'm
Sure.
thinking of resin, I'm thinking of my friend Bill who casts like models for a living, like
Sure.
Godzilla models. He's always talking about pouring resin. So in my head, I'm just thinking like he's going to revolutionize the art of model making and all these
Could
people are willing to kill for it. I just didn't get it.
model making is big business. Toys are huge these days. So, I think it could be that kind of resin as well.
It struck me as kind of being silly because they're always talking. It's almost as if they wrote in resin as a placeholder in the screenplay and forgot to explain it or put in something else. Because at one point I wrote down on my extensive notes, this may be the origin. I know Hitchcock came up with this earlier, but this might be where the MacGuffin came from because this is
Mhm.
purely a MacGuffin. People trying to lie, cheat, steal, and kill to get something that's never quite explained.
What I love the fact that it's resin and not some like, cure for cancer or something. It's like, no, it's resin. It's like, wow, that's okay. Okay. Make sure it's not a cure for cancer. How about resin? Resin works. Go.
And there's a great scene where the professor and I'm going to put up the spoiler tag for this 50
We're only 5 minutes
plus year old
in. We're
movie.
going to
Yeah.
ruin this right now.
Well, I just want to make sure that anyone who hasn't seen $5 for an August Moon, and despite my kind of snarkiness at the beginning, I do recommend people watch this. Not only because it's Mario Bava, and as I mentioned, a different kind of Bava film than I've seen from him. It's also got the return of the lovely Edwige Fenech, who we
Yep.
haven't seen on this show in quite a while, and she's sorely missed. But it's just, as the film goes on, it becomes a completely different kind of animal. And I think that animal is quite a ferocious beast at the end, that I had such a big smile on my face, but it was a confused smile. Like, am I losing my mind? Did it just become this right before it ends? And yeah, it's all great. But yeah, so also going back to the Wicker Man, Isabel are kind of the blonde, I guess, fifth wheel of the couples.
Mhm.
She is
Well,
kind of
actually,
like, hey,
wait, hang on. So now I
I thought it
remember
was
that.
her.
Well,
Okay.
no, sorry. There is a 10th character, and that's Jacques or Charles, who's the cabana boy, the one who's like taking care of the. So there are ostensibly five couples. There's 10 people on the island.
Was he was the cabana boy? That's kind of the other problem, is we're not so much introduced to these characters as just like dropped. It's almost like we're the 11th guest at this party and we literally
Yes.
know nobody there. They don't have name tags. They don't say, oh, Charles, how do you like being the cabana boy? Or, I'm a billionaire industrialist and this is my
Right.
wife. And she's
Right.
seeing this other person, who is also a woman. And there's like this
Just unfolds naturally as it does at a party. You have to ask the right questions. Speaking of which, I said this the last time I watched it. I said it again this time. I never get invited to parties like this. Like nobody invites me to the one where the lady's up there. Edwige Fenech is up there dancing and like, shaking herself all around. I'm like, I never get invited to parties like this. What the heck?
Well, considering what happens at this party and the ensuing couple of days, it's probably for the best.
Sure.
But no, so yes, Isabel, who is, I guess she's the fifth kind of wheel, even though she's the 10th person. I don't know. She's not coupled up, but she's kind of hanging out on the beach, and it's almost as if she didn't know these people, but happened upon this party, because she's kind of sneaking a
Right.
look in the window as Edwige Fenech's character starts doing this dance, and she's in this like flowing kind of gold sparkly costume, and then again the Wicker Man thing, there's a bit of a ritual, and they're talking about sacrificing to a god. I'm like, is this taking place on summer? This is the other side of Summer Isle, I'm
The
pretty
other
sure.
Summer Isle, yeah.
But the lights go out, and when the lights come back on, she's been stabbed through the stabbed very up through the ribs, really. But
Edwige
then,
Fenech gets stabbed, and you're like, oh no, is that it?
right, she's like the Janet Leigh of this movie, you think. But
Right.
then, no, much like the Wicker Man, there's a character that falls dead, and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then they open their eyes and they start laughing. Like, oh, it was all a big joke.
Yep.
But then the rest, as the film unfolds, we realize that it's Professor Farrell, I believe, is the one who has
Yep.
the resin formula that everybody wants, and the other multimillionaire businessmen all have allegedly $1 million checks in their pockets ready to buy this thing. And there's talk of like pooling the money, or don't sell to him, sell to me. And there's all this kind of intrigue that goes on. And Charles, the cabana boy, as you put it, he ends up stabbed for real,
Yep.
as Edwige Fenech, who is cheating on her husband with him, not even very clandestinely. They're out on the yacht where they're cuddled up. I love this bit. It's so silly. They're cuddling on the deck of this yacht, and he's steering the ship with his feet.
He's a
That's the
skilled seaman. Yep. Don't go there.
they
Don't.
they, they didn't show that. It's still a family film. Well, not
I was going to
exactly.
say, I don't know that it is. It's a kinder film, however, in tone than Bay of Blood, which was, I think, the Bava film that preceded this one.
Oh, it came out after that. I looked
This
up.
was
Bay of Blood was
this
71.
71, and then this was 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, and I kept thinking, like, I don't remember being this bored during Bay of Blood. And part of that is, I
The
don't want to
murders
say
are more elaborate for sure.
they're more elaborate. I feel like they're more frequent. I mean, there's like this
Yeah, there's
big
a lot of
dry,
murders. Yeah.
it's the back part of this film that's really heavy loaded. You get the kind of the
Yeah.
fake out in the beginning,
Yep.
and then you got Charles, and then it's a while before anything really happens. It's all this intrigue about the
The
MacGuffin.
formula. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just there all these people, I guess the idea is that they're so rich and so bored with each other. It's like almost something out of a Bret Easton Ellis novel. They're just, I want the formula. No, I want the formula. I'll pay $1 million. I'll
Yeah.
pay you $1 million. I'm like, oh, just stop. Um, then when the bodies start falling, it's great because they're kind of stranded out there on this island. There's nobody coming to help them. I think the main guy sent the boat like back to shore or something. It was going to come back in a couple of days, so they really are stranded. There's no outside communication to anybody. So what do they do when they have a dead body? I know cops or a morgue take them to. They put them in the giant meat locker.
Yep.
They wrap them up in plastic and hang them up there. And well, I'll jump forward to talk about the really good stuff of the film.
Sure. Sure.
As more people start dying, this is where it gets really darkly funny. I love the music in this film. It's
Yep.
kind of like, this crazy like organ music with some I can't quite describe it because I'm not musically inclined. This is why we need Blake here,
I was
darn
going
it.
to say, yep. Where are you, Blake?
But it's very kind of like poppy, zippy music. And it comes on when we cut to the storage locker as more bodies are being added to it, it becomes comical. I complained in The Wicker Man that there was no like horrific tone. I like the playful horror of the tone of this movie because I was never scared. I was never really concerned about any of these characters because I didn't like them. But when
Yeah.
the film gets really cheeky, and I guess as Agatha Christie has a co-writing credit. Was this based on a
Oh,
novel of hers?
it must have been.
Okay, because I would like to read. It was
It's where we need Brian. I'm like, I feel completely ill-equipped to discuss other than to say, yes, there were 10 people. And by the end, there are two.
we've got the numbers, guy. That's what really
Yep.
matters. No,
Yep.
ooh, I know this isn't probably the best way to put it, but because Agatha Christie, she was famous for among other things, 10 Little Indians, right?
Right. Yep.
And we have 10 people,
Yep.
in this story, and they're all kind of getting knocked off. So
I
the
wonder if
writer,
that's what it is, if it's a riff on and then there were none. Yeah.
ooh, so it may not be an adaptation. Perhaps it was inspired and
That could
needed to
be.
get
Yeah.
that credit. So it was officially written by Mario DiNardo, Mario Bava, two Marios, the Mario brothers, not really, and then Agatha Christie. Uh,
Okay.
so how does this? First of all, where were you in your say Bava journey when you watched this film?
And I feel like this is probably true of most people. It's one that you come to later because it's
Hmm.
not one of the more highly touted Bava films. I think, as you say, it's kind of playful and it's fun, but I wouldn't say it's a horror film by any stretch at all. Like it's just kind of a murder mystery, very Agatha Christie. The slayings are pretty tame. I mean, we have like blades and chests and things like that, but it does not feel like we're looking to scare anybody. It just looks like it's a suspense film. So I came to it later. I was, doing my completist thing. And I came to this one and, like Barren Blood and things like that kind of later down the pike after you'd seen, Black Sunday and Black Sabbath and, Bay of Blood and Blood, Black Lace, some of the really heavy hitters, the kind of must sees of the Bava canon. But this one, again, I don't feel like I watched this one enough. And I'm like, it is fun in that, as you say, you don't necessarily like anybody. And so you're not, in any, you're not sad when anybody's gone missing. But there's some fun kind of red herrings and misdirections and like where you go, wait, how is that possible? And then they explain, you go, that's cool. I like that. As you said, like when we see the bodies continue to pile up in the meat locker, I wasn't as wild about the score, but I did like that musical cue that comes along whenever you go back to the meat locker and watch another, bag get hung up.
The score does a lot of, I think, heavy lifting just in terms of contributing to the weirdness
Yeah.
of this movie. Because, and this is perhaps my preconceived notions going into this, much like The Wicker Man. I expected to see more of a horror film, more of a body count movie. This is a body count movie, but as you mentioned, it's more of a thriller,
Yeah.
down to the point where you've got the two penultimate last two people standing, and they're negotiating the secret formula, and then there's like a two-person Mexican standoff.
Yep.
Tarantino must love this movie, but they're doing that whole thing of like explaining the plot and explaining their role in it to each other and kind of yelling, and then there's the gunfire. I'm like, this is more like a spy thriller or something
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
that, down to the secret formula being on microfilm, which I thought
Microfilm.
was
Yep.
great,
Yeah.
and a mini golden gun hidden inside a pistol. And I haven't seen this before. The pistol that is in the purse, usually I've seen the small pistol in the handbag before, but usually it's pulled out. This is
Yeah.
shot through the
Shoots
bottom of it.
right through it. That, I thought that was a class move. Well done.
Yes. But still somehow stormtrooper aim, unless the bullets were particularly weak, because the guy got shot right through the
In the
cheek.
face. I'm just like, dude, how? I mean, because he fires off a couple of rounds in return.
And we are talking spoiler territory, and we're talking
Yes.
about the ending, or the sort of the false ending, because the real ending is as a beaut. But damn it, Bava got me, because Isabel is watching the last two people standing, who are involved in this kind of plot, and
Yep.
they kill each other, and so she goes for the handbag, which has the three, I think,
$1 million checks.
$1 million checks,
Yeah.
and then she goes for the microfilm, which is by the body of the guy who had the gun, and he's lying there, his eyes are open, he dies with his eyes open, everything. You're like, okay, he's actually dead. But
Yeah.
when she reaches for that film, it was like De Palma and Carrie. I was, oh my God, what's
Oh,
that?
good. That's fun.
And the fact that he was alive just enough to struggle, and that was the last thing he did, was to try and keep it from her, even though it was futile, because he literally died like seconds after that.
Yeah.
It was a good jump scare.
A good jump scare. I agree. And the thing is, because we're in spoiler territory,
Mhm.
like, because you don't see the professor showing up anywhere in the locker, I had a sneaking suspicion that we had not seen the last of him, that he would be showing up again. And so when he does show up at the very, very end, it was fun to see him, but also it was like, oh, there's even a twist on that as well, because it turns out he's not the actual professor, or he didn't come up with the formula. He stole it from his partner and was going to sell it to these other guys. And
So I did not pick up on that.
it's that last little bit of explanation when he's in the jail cell, is that
Right.
because that's why he's in the jail cell, is because he murdered his partner, and that's why he's arrested.
Thank you for that, because and we should probably set this up for those who haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing here? The spoiler banner's at the bottom. But our professor, our quote unquote professor, our faux professor, he gets shot on the beach by Isabel, right?
Yes.
Uh, Probably midway through the film, and
Yep.
a great shot involving the gun sight and him, like it's the barrel of the gun, the rifle is revealed as we're kind of pulling back from seeing him on the beach, and then we kind of like I can't even describe it, but we go from the barrel of the gun like right up through the scope, and we see who's holding it, and then
Yep.
the gunshot and everything. But so he's dead, allegedly. She comes out, drags the body in the water, as the clandestine lesbian couple who had seen or heard the shot
Right.
saw the body. They went up to the house to go get everybody. In the meantime, Isabella drags the body into the water. Not far enough into the water, because help me out. Did the body disappear? Or did they just see that it had been dragged into the ocean? Because
That's it. The body has disappeared. They see that it's been dragged, and they say, "Oh, it must have happened. It must have been in a hurry. As if somebody had done this and then had to rush back up to the house in case they were discovered." So yeah, but now that you were talking about the fact that Isabel is kind of sneaking around the house, does she ever interact with the couples, or is she just on the island as a kind of silent partner with the professor?
damn it.
I
Again,
think that may be the case. Is that she and the professor are in cahoots, and that's why she shot him with the sodium pentothal tranquilizer darts, which unfortunately forced him to confess to the police that he'd murdered his partner. Which I was like, that's amazing. Well done.
Well, and that's why that's the bit of clarity that I was looking for because and it didn't make sense. What you're saying makes sense now. I just didn't pick up on it. I thought that he had confessed to the murders of everybody in the house,
Mm.
and not just his partner. But yeah, I did love
Well,
the
he didn't kill everybody else in the house, though. So
right.
he,
I know, but I thought
yeah,
that he had been arrested for, for those murders. Like
no, yeah.
the cops had come, they discovered this horrific scene, and like, you did it, and he's like, yes, I did, because I can't help but telling the truth, even though I don't know what the hell's going on. That's why that was a bit of a loose end for me. But on rewatch, I'm going to be looking out for our dear Isabel and seeing. It's
I
almost like
see.
a Sixth Sense situation, like no one else can see her but us, the
I
audience.
think that's true. Actually, I'd say I think she kind of like is always lingering on the outskirts and drifting through when nobody is looking. Because and I do love her comment about when having shot him with the sodium pentothal. She's like, well, we shoot our animals with it, but they don't get up and start talking.
We'll get to that last scene in a second, but
Okay,
going back to your question, which I think, or your point, which is a very astute one, I think it was a puzzlement to me when we're down to the last four people and they're hanging out in the living room essentially,
right.
um, and they're like, okay, nobody can leave here because one of us has to be the killer. I'm thinking, what about Isabel? No one's thought about her unless they're not even
They
really
don't know.
aware that she's around. That's a
Yeah,
that's a great
yeah, yeah. Because it's
idea.
just the three of them at that point. It's the professor's wife and two of the businessmen. And this is a great thing. And again, since we have the spoiler banner, let's the fact that they I forget do you remember who the guy is who owns the island? He's the older gentleman.
They all they
I
all kind
can't
of run together, yeah.
can't remember his name, but anyway, he is the one who says uh you know he has people that are coming to pick everybody up at an appointed time, and everybody passes out. Everybody passes out after drinking this shaker drink that one of the guests makes. And when the yachts people swing by to pick them up, there's nobody in the house. Like, it is empty, it's bare. And we're all kind of like, as an audience, we're like looking and going, well, wait, where are they? Is this what time are we in? Have we gone forward or back? And turns out it was in real time. They came, there was nobody there, and then the bodies all got put back in place to wake up. And I was like, that's hilarious. I've never seen that done before, to be honest.
Neither have I. And it's not just that the bodies were moved someplace else and hidden for the time that house is being looked over. It's that when they showed up, because this is a detail I was looking at, because like you, I was like, when is this taking place?
Right.
But the table, the glass coffee table, everything is nice and neat and
Yep.
put in place. And then when people wake up, I don't know that everything is put back exactly as it was because I don't think the people waking up from being drugged would notice, but it is in a similar state of
Yep.
disarray to
Yep.
when they all passed out. And yeah, it's a brilliant move. And this is when I really started to, it's towards the end of the movie, but I really started to groove with it. And up until this point, I kept thinking this really is a matter of style over substance
Yeah. Yeah.
because the characters are all very dry. There's almost a Calvin Klein ad sense of these beautiful people doing weirdly poetic things in this luxurious setting. But I did notice the lovely camera work by Bob. There's a bit where Isabel is swinging on a
Mm.
tree like rope swing, and as her movements go back and forth, the camera she's swinging side to side on the XY, and we're pushing in on the Z
Yeah.
axis with the movements. And it's just, I don't know what it means, but I appreciate it. Like, oh, this is really interesting to look at.
I got some serious Klaus Kinski vibes from our professor, and it could have just been his super blonde hair, but I was it was fun. And I didn't look, but I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to look, but the our actors, Other than Edwidge Fennick, I feel like I've seen uh, uh, our old gentleman. I will have a name for him just a second. But but again, they're not anybody who they aren't like, familiar faces other than say Edwidge Fennick.
Well, the one actress who played Trudy, Ira von Furstenberg, she kind of
Yes.
reminded me of Barbara Steele. I don't know what it was, but there
Ah,
was there
sure.
was there was that kind of a quality about her. I had to look up. I'm like, oh, that's not actually her. But it's a shame they didn't play sisters in a movie or something, or maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah, just looking at the cast list, I actually don't recognize anybody. So, but that's okay because there are times when I like not having a familiar face and just be like, okay, I can just invest in these characters as they are.
Yeah. Um, and as far as the characterizations go, they're pretty thin,
Yeah.
but they are still kind of fun. Like the rotating bed is almost a character in this movie because we see Edwige Finch on it. We see Ira von Furstenberg. Am I getting that right? Yeah, I wonder if she's
Yep.
related to the famous von Furstenberg. Um, but yeah, there's something about being on that rotating bed with like red lingerie on, and it
Hmm.
really makes me like stand at attention.
Hello.
Not in that way, but like, but there's something about drawing underscoring the importance of those two scenes by getting to really pay attention to what the people are wearing. It's a lot of fun. Um, I saw 2 bottles of J&B Scotch on one table. That might be a
Hmm.
record. Um, it preceded by what should have been a J&B ad tagline: "Houseboys come and go, but there's always a bottle." So good.
There's
Um,
some well, and in the version that I saw, our cabana boy is named Jacques, as in, the French Jack, but there's a character named Jack. And so somebody had the good sense in the English dub to call the cabana boy Charles, because I was like, Jacques and Jacques, really? Come on, you didn't think that one through too much.
well, I mean, I don't think that would have mattered much, like, if they'd kept the names because I found a lot of these people to be indistinguishable. There was, like, uh, dark-haired millionaire who's older, dark-haired
Yep,
millionaire who's younger.
yep,
Young
yep.
much younger dark but getting back to, I guess, the artistry here and what I recognize more from Bava, there's a scene where the one guy wakes up in bed with, a model or whoever she is, and she gets up and goes out on she kinda, like, dances around the room seductively in her nightie, and then she goes out onto the balcony, and
Hmm.
she's out there for a few minutes, and then he gets up in this lovely, like, patterned gold Speedo,
Yes.
and he goes out onto the balcony and calls her name, and she's not moving because we see she's leaned over the balcony, and as the camera pulls, like, forward, like, past her butt and to see her face, we see a giant bullet hole in her forehead. I'm like, we've seen that kinda trope in slasher movies before. We kind of even saw it in this movie with our poor Charles on the boat when Edwige
Hmm.
Fennick goes in
It's
to
calling
seduce
for
him.
him. Yeah.
Right. That someone's lying a little too still and you pull them back like, "Oh my god, they're dead." But this is something that I haven't really seen before insofar as usually there's like a horrible stab wound or a dismembering. This is a simple bullet to the head, probably done with a silencer. Um, yeah, it's just
Well, and
and then we cut to her in the meat locker.
I think that's maybe part of what makes it not a horror film is that everyone it seems like half of the people are murdered with half, if not more, murdered with like, pistols.
True, and the ones that are done with knives are even the fake killing at the beginning. It's, like, up through the ribs, like,
Mhm.
in a very specific spot, and usually when I see that, it's almost like a criminal's calling card, like, there's a reason, that that's done or something to do with the psychology of the killer. I think that might just been random here. Did you pick up on anything there?
Well, okay, so what's interesting is that we have these murders, but we don't get any kind of like stalking scenes. Oftentimes bodies just show up dead. Like Edward Fennick shows up dead. The one that you just talked about on the balcony just shows up dead. we have a very quick, like the quote murder of the professor is just very, we see the gun and then we see him get shot. So there isn't a lot of building up around the murders. The murders aren't necessarily set pieces, which is absolutely what Bay of Blood is. Like it is all about, murder, 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 murder. 13 of them, I think.
Much like Friday the 13th, a film that has nothing to do at all,
At
according
all.
to Sean Cunningham, with Bay and Blood. I did write down a couple of, I think I have this right. I think Nick was the younger, older billionaire guy with the dark hair, and George, I think he was the owner of the island, the
Yep, that
guy who
sounds
set
right.
all this up. Because you're right, there aren't the stalking POV scenes which we're used to. This is more in the line of like what Fincher did with Seven, where we're treated to the immediate aftermath of, it's not nearly as grisly as that movie was, but we're also kind of with the cops in that we get the phone call, we show up at the scene, we see what happened after the actual killing was done.
Right.
One of the things I thought was pretty brilliant was there's a scene where Nick and George fight each other. I think over probably money or something, and it's mostly behind this gridded screen. But then we cut into the room of them punching each other, and it's great because there are very clearly just these soft punches of them like hitting each other in the stomach or the ribs, but
Yep.
they all are like the
Oh, man.
cracking jaws sound effect.
I wrote down big time Foley. I was like, yeah, Foley art is having a good time that day.
Well, also, but I'll digress to the end where the two characters are shooting each other in that room. All of those gun sound effects sound like rifles being shot outside.
Yep. He's like, what do I got in the catalog? Yeah, that's a good one.
I like that. You should do the rest of the show in that
No,
accent.
no, I did. I did my Terror Tuesdays for Dario Argento, and like it sounded Russian. I was like, you are the worst actor of all time. No accents for you, my friend.
Oh, well, okay. So back to Nick and George and their fight. When
Yeah.
we get into the room and they're kind of tossing each other around, one of them falls into a random basket or bowl of plastic balls. They look like glass
Yes.
because they all
Yeah.
fall onto the floor, and you think you're expecting the shatter, but they're all, hard plastic.
Right.
They bounce down a stairwell that looks, in any other movie, this would have been a stairwell that's revealed on the other side of a secret bookcase entrance. It's kind of going down, but they bounce and we follow them down into a jacuzzi or a big tub where one of the other characters has apparently slit her wrists and said, I'm sorry, please forgive me. It wasn't established, I don't think, that this person was murdered. It seemed like she genuinely killed herself, right?
I think that may be right. If not, it never is shown that, oh, and I murdered her too.
But my question is, and again, this would take me seeing the movie again and or really understanding who the hell these people are. What was she guilty of? Or what? Forgive me for what?
No. What was somebody, wasn't she the, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't remember, but it made sense at the time. I remember that. Unlike perhaps your experience, I was like going, no, that makes sense. That's, of course she killed herself. She's racked with guilt. Or was it her lover had been killed? Because I feel like she's part of the couple.
No, I think. Oh wait, which lover? Because well, it was her lover. Probably, maybe. Well, because I was going to say which lover, because she was the other half of the lesbian couple.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like maybe that was part of it. Was that she couldn't deal with that anymore.
Possibly, because Trudy, who was the other, the dead
she's the one
girls,
pulling the strings.
Yes, and also pulling out the little golden pistol at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's it. There's that kind of guilt. It's not necessarily to do with the main plot, but sort of these interstitial little relationship dramas.
It's also we're running out of time. Everybody has to die at some point, so you got to go.
Yeah. How many times have you seen this?
This is the second time I've seen it.
Okay, so
I enjoyed it, and I don't have a long history with it. Again, it was one that I came to much later and hadn't been back to visit, so I was excited when Brian suggested it, and I'm glad glad to have revisited it again. But again, I don't think it's a horror film, so I think that's probably why it doesn't get as much play. Is that, you know, the murders aren't spectacular, the characters aren't particularly memorable. Edwidge Fenwick is the only kind of like mainstay of the giallo subgenre. So I mean, that may be why it just doesn't get as much PR.
And you know, it's got these ingredients
Mm-hmm.
that should add up to this delicious, you know, souffle. I'm thinking about why this doesn't work. Maybe it's because
Do you think it doesn't work? Do you think? Because I think it's just a light entertainment. Is all. Is that it's not a classic. It's not like a Blood and Black Lace. But I think it's fine. I think it serves the turn.
it does. If it weren't for that ending, which we haven't really talked about, the very ending, we
Sure.
kind of danced around it. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's the thing. Like, uh, Bava has covered. First of all, he's done, you know, more straight up like slashery, horror-y type giallo. So I
Yep.
think there might be an expectation. There certainly was on my part, and based on Brian's enthusiasm, it'd be great if he was here. Um,
And how many
considering,
times do you get to say that?
hey, no, it's just yes, folks. He recommend. I think this was Brian's recommendation.
It
He was
was.
very
He was
excited to
very
talk about
excited
it.
to talk about it, but just not with us.
You know, maybe the problem is, you know, we sent the boat back to the mainland.
Yep.
No, but so the thing is, Bava has done horror before, so to see this, which is more of a dry, you
Yeah.
know, lack of, you know, he definitely seems to be trying something new, and I appreciate that, but it's different than what I expected. Edwige Fenwick, we've seen her play not necessarily this type of character before. She typically has more to do with the main plot,
Yes.
more agency, more than just being
Well,
like the piece of arm candy who's like kind of being passed around these millionaires.
just more character, I think, for everybody. Like that. I mean, that's kind of what's missing here. Is there's no real depth to any of these characters. They are just sketches in order to kind of like go through the motions of playing out the plot.
Right. And I agree. And that's the third point I was going to make is a Bava film that also involved kind of industrial espionage among elites was Blood and Black Lace, which you
Mhm.
mentioned. And that I feel like there was more personality in the people, but is also it's not necessarily people trying to get their hands on, again, whatever the hell resin is in this
Mhm.
context, but it's the world of high fashion. So you've got like scantily clad models everywhere. You've got these great set pieces with the wardrobe room and all this opportunity for real suspense. Even Bay of Blood, which is ostensibly about people who weren't trapped on an island, but they were in kind of a remote, you know, wooded area. I
Yeah.
feel like it's been a while since we talked about that, but I feel like there is more personality involved in those people as well. So it's just those three factors. I think they kind of work in sum total of what the movie is, but I feel like if each of those points had been strengthened, that might have helped boost this profile higher than it is.
Agreed. Agreed. Again, I think it's a high mark for it to try and match, you know, to get back to, you know, Blood and Black Lace and Bay of Blood. I mean, those are classics among aficionados for a reason. I think this is what it is, and it's a perfectly serviceable, you know, kind of B movie thriller. And it may have just been Bava, like you said, maybe Bava trying something new, not wanting to get all horrific. But yeah, but I don't fault it. I found it more enjoyable than I remembered.
And I wonder if I'm just speculating and kind of it's just fanboy hyperbole here, but I feel like after this was over, he was like, you know what? I just want to go cut up some people. I'm going to do a double impaling in my next movie.
Yep, yep.
Noble experiment, but forget about it. Let's do Bay of Blood.
Or yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. He was like, you know what, be more. You know what would have helped $5 for an August Moon is more murders, more elaborate set pieces. Um, and you know, we don't. I don't remember, and I don't know what the circumstances under the filming circumstances were here. So you know, maybe this was a quickie, and he had more time to plan things out for his next one. It does remind me. I did see the menu last night.
Oh, how is that?
Oh, you have
I've
not
heard
seen
good
it. Okay,
things.
well, but
No.
it's similar kind of setup where rich people are on a secluded island, and there's no way to get off, and you just start getting the sense that this is not going to go well. So it was funny to kind of watch two island movies back to back.
Well, it also reminded me of another movie that I haven't seen, but it's the plot is similar. Is the Glass Onion, the Knives Out
Which I
sequel that
also have
came
not
out?
seen yet.
Right, but there's a bunch of people come to like this elite billionaire's island, I think because he had died, and so but then other
Hmm.
people start dying at this gathering. So yeah, it's a hearty subgenre. But real quick, would you recommend The Menu?
I do recommend The Menu. Yes,
Okay,
you
I gotta
should.
check that out.
It was one that it's another kind of mystery thriller, but I think it's also it pushes the envelope toward the horror just enough that I think horror fans will be excited to watch it as well. But
Solid.
it's not so horrific that people who aren't card carrying horror fans would want to stay away. I think it walks a really nice line.
Nice. All right, so let's talk about this ending. Our two main bad guys, or bad guy and bad gal, have shot each other to death.
Right.
Isabel has made off with the three $1 million checks and the microfilm containing the formula.
Yep.
Cut to her walking down this aisle, and there's a voiceover. She's very fancily dressed. It's kind of a cold white wall hallway setting, and there's a voiceover talking about this guy confessing to the murder due to the influence of sodium pentothal. And you
Mhm.
realize that she's I the
Yeah. Right.
context of
Right.
it, well, the context of it though is like I it seemed almost as if she had been blamed for it,
Right.
right?
Like
So when
she's the
she's
one behind bars.
right, she's walking up and the bars are revealed in the
Yeah.
extreme
Yeah.
foreground, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, she's in prison, but why is she dressed like that in
Right.
jail? And
Exactly.
they realize that she is visiting
Yep.
our erstwhile professor. Um, and what I loved about this is we haven't seen much of Isabel or gotten a flavor for who she is. I mean, even less so than the other characters in this movie, but she is she knows when to stay away. She knows how not to be seen, to stay hidden, and knows
Right.
just when to jump in and steal the film and the check. So she's no dummy. But when she starts talking to this guy, there is this kind of bubbly, 1970 Kardashian kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. She's very ditzy, and you're like, oh wow.
right. She's like, oh, I'm really sorry about shooting you with the sodium pentothal, but you woke up and you confessed to killing your partner, and that's why you're on death row and you're going to be hanged in the next couple of days. She's like, by the way, I tried to deposit one of the checks in the bank and I need the routing number. Can you
Right.
give that to me? And the guy is like completely incredulous. He's like, what about the other $2 million? She's like, oh, I spent all that. I'm down to my last one. And I'm like, wow. But then he says, okay, lean in here and I'll tell it to you. And I expected him to like pull out a
Yeah.
shiv or say, screw off or something like that. But he gives
Just gives it to her because he's not going to use it.
right. But it's almost as if he's feeling so guilty at not only whatever crime he did, but that he fell for this moron. I mean, she's not a moron, but it's almost like he feels that she of all people should not have gotten the better of him, and he feels defeated, and then she
Well,
just kind of bounces away.
and the flip side of that could be is if they were in fact partners, because again, she shoots him, she drags him off. Like if they were in cahoots, then they were partners to begin with. And again, he's not going to be able to use this money, so that's why she feels like she can go to him and say, can I have the code? And I'm really sorry, and I hope there's a better world waiting for you.
Wait a second.
You don't think? I think they might have been
No,
cahoots. I mean, that's why
no,
no.
it's not that. You'll see in a second.
Hi, Brian.
Brian Martinez says, hope you guys dug this Baba Fennec classic. Damn, I'm bummed I missed this discussion. We are too, Brian.
Yep.
We were talking about that a little bit ago. I hope all is well. And on the rewatch, you can see what we thought of it. I'm thoroughly puzzled, but I also kind of love this movie, and I need to watch it again real soon. But yeah, it's an odd one. So yeah, we did a revisit of Blood and Black Lace some time ago. Maybe we'll have to revisit this one and drag Brian. Talking about dragging someone from the beach, we got to drag him onto the show
Yep.
so we can talk about this. But yeah, it's I guess the thing is, like, he didn't seem to have any kind of fear or resignation or anything about being on death row, because it seemed like
Right.
he was about to be hanged.
Yep.
And just this quality of being, like I said, kind of just stupefied by her complete lack of empathy, lack of awareness to his situation. Like, yeah, I'm just the ATM, I'm going to give you the code, go have your $1 million. But I would have loved to have seen oh, wait, hold on a second. I missed the first one. So how did that happen? Your second comment came before your first comment. So God damn it, I thought this was tomorrow. So sorry, guys. I'm all messed up. It's totally okay. We love you, Brian. Yeah, and this typically we do this on Sundays, but because of scheduling or something, I can't remember why we switched it
My
to. Oh, it's
fault.
because you're traveling, right?
It's my fault.
Blame AC. No.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so the ending, I'd say the last 20 minutes are what made me reevaluate and want to give the first, hour or so, because this is a short film. It's only like 124, right?
Yeah. No, I think even less than that. At least the version I saw was only 81 minutes.
Okay. But, and the problem that I had, I made a crack about the 3 hours. There is a long stretch of this movie that I was just waiting for it to kick into gear. Even with the girl in the bathtub who who kills herself, I was wondering, is this a setup? Because we've seen this before. Someone
Sure.
made to look like a suicide. It didn't occur to me that might have been, she might have actually killed herself, but why? Until after the movie was over. Because in these situations, you wait until the very end to see if all is
Yeah.
revealed.
Yeah.
And that
It
was
all
a
gets
detail that,
rolled out for us.
right, but I didn't think, it didn't bother me until we started having this conversation. It didn't even bother me. It's just like I thought, oh wait, why did she do that? So I think that's a mark of a solid film. Like, there are things that are puzzlements, maybe even plot holes that aren't so obvious that they bug you
They
and
don't take
cause
you.
you to
Yeah.
write
They
the whole
don't take
thing
you out
off.
of the movie. Exactly.
Right. Um, I don't know. Do we have? It's kind of a strange thing to say, but is there more to say about $5 for an
I
August
don't
moon?
know that I have anything more to say that I haven't said already. I think it's worth seeing. Just be advised that it's not going to be Blood and Black Lace. It's not going to be Bay of Blood. It is a different beast. I think it's a lighter beast, and maybe it's something that if you have uh, friends who are more squeamish and are a little like, I don't want to dive right into, because I think Bay of Blood can be pretty harsh at times. Same thing with Blood and Black Lace, where this is just kind of like, it's a light little mystery, where there's a pretty good body count, but it's not a lot of gore. So,
Yeah,
it might serve that turn. There's a Bava for everyone.
I agree. And I haven't seen a lot of Bava, and I think all the Bava I've seen has been for this show.
Mhm.
Is he kind of like the Coen brothers in of horror, or Giallo, in that he might be kind of hard to pin down if you list like 25 movies, pick out the Bavas, because it seems to me he kind of flits around and does very well in different kinds of horror movies, but you can't say, oh, he's a slasher guy. Or if you
Mm.
look at Black Sunday, it's like, oh, he does these kind of like medieval witch movies.
I would say that Bava is the one who kind of pioneered the colored gels. Like those are very prominent in Blood and Black Lace, in his film Black Sunday, which preceded Blood and Black Lace, 1963, which is celebrating an anniversary this year.
Oh,
And uh, oh shoot, Danger Diabolique. So he covers a lot of different genres, but there's always that kind of feel that I think you can pick out a Bava film. He takes great care in the way that Argento is very acrobatic with his camera and show offy in that regard. I think Bava's gift is just kind of like creating beautiful pictures. And like that's what it doesn't necessarily. It's not the dynamic camera moves. It's just how beautiful each frame looks.
Yeah, and I would say that like watching this film, I I did compliment some of the camera work in terms of the what I'll call the set pieces, like with the lady in the bathtub, the swing set thing. But a
Hmm.
lot of it, I think, was, and this is sort of the case in Blood and Black Lace too. It was the production design and the kind of the costuming as well, made up for the fact that there's not a whole lot of dynamic. Not a lot of dynamic work, I don't think, in this movie, but there's always something really cool to look at. Even the house,
Yeah.
we see it kind of up on usually up in the right hand corner of the screen, above the beach. There's that lovely black winding staircase that I want in my house, even though I have nowhere to put it. um, and not that he built all these by hand, but it just seems to have an eye for stuff that, like, I'm going to have this murder mystery in a place that's really cool, so
Yeah.
you want to spend time there, even though you also want to leave because you might be afraid for your life. All right, so we're going to close this out with a boatload, and that's I'll say a yacht load of comments.
Oh, good. Where did all the comments
Brian.
come from?
From Brian.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can make it. There's the door works. You can come through the studio door.
This film is so unique, considering as a Bava film, you kind of get the impression Bava is trying to keep up with the genre's other filmmakers with this one. It also marks the only time he worked with Fennec. Wow.
Okay.
100%. He's so hard to pin down. True. And $5 is a film best served in its many iconic scenes. Really beautiful to look at in moments. I agree all the way. There, I almost kind of wish this was a movie about ritual sacrifice, because there is that great. Was Charles the waiter in that opening scene?
Probably being the
Okay.
cabana boy.
Okay, because I didn't put that together. When I'm watching it, I just see him as, the waiter is walking around passing out knives and daggers for
Right.
this ceremony. It's just such a great image, because that's something I don't feel like I've seen before. And some people, I think one of the people kind of turns it away, like I don't want one, but then the other people
The professor doesn't want one.
That's right, because he seems kind of like put off by this whole thing.
Yeah, these stupid people with their stupid money.
Yeah. Even though he wants,
which is another theme from the menu. So,
hey, I gotta watch
people and their stupid money.
I gotta watch the menu now.
You do.
All right. I think that's it. We're gonna let people out a little bit early in the spirit of the oncoming summer season. By the way, also, we are going to be taking the month of June off due to various scheduling concerns. Not even concerns, just like we're going to take a month off. We'll get a little
Enjoy
early
the
summer vacation.
folks.
Yeah, and we'll come back. I'm going to say July, but hopefully things will line up then. If not, maybe August. Who knows? But definitely hoping for July. Not sure what it'll be, but let's put this out to the class. In the spirit of summer vacation, when we come back, what should we talk about? If you want to leave your suggestions down in the comment section, we will consider them and possibly put your pick on the syllabus, because we've got a long list of Giallo films that we pick from each month. But we want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Go through the Accademia Giallo playlist here on the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel to see what we've already kind of talked about, so we don't double up. But yeah, we'll entertain any and all ideas, as long as they are Giallo films. But AC, thank you for joining me, for hanging out as always. People should check out your stuff at Horror 101 with Dr. AC. And of course, your YouTube channel, in addition to your written reviews and all the other billion things you're up to. Wait a second. Oh, one more.
Of course.
I have to put this up because it's a great point. Fennec's white flower bikini. Yes. That should be
the costumes were good.
They were, but I want someone to have that as their screen name. Just Fennec's white flower bikini. All right. Well, until July, that's when we'll get together again. Thanks, everybody. Be sure and like and subscribe to this episode. If you did like it and you want to subscribe, be sure and support all of our lovely and talented Accademia Giallo staff, including the absent but always missed Brian Martinez, and all that of the Giallo Room. Thank you. Information down below. And we'll see you in July. Until then, class dismissed.